Getting you up to speed with your HQ headlines, beginning with former Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord, who is committed to Syracuse. It's a big win for the new head coach, Fran Brown. McCord started every regular season game for the Buckeyes this year, going 11-1 with over 3,100 yards and 26 touchdowns. Elsewhere, Florida State running back Trey Benson is going pro. Benson announced on social media that he'll be sitting out the Orange Bowl in order to begin preparations for the NFL Draft. This past season, Benson rushed for 905 yards and 14 touchdowns. The Noles will face Georgia on December 30th. In baseball news, free agent outfielder Lourdes Gurriel is returning to the National League champions. He's agreed to a 3-year, $42 million deal with the Diamondbacks. This comes according to multiple reports. Made the All-Star team in his first season in Arizona this year, helping the D-backs reach the World Series. We are final with the Finns, 30-0, a no contest despite no Tyreek Hill. Tua, as efficient as he could be without his lead wide receiver, found his other one, Jalen Waddle, 8 for 142 of the 224 total, for Tagovailoa. A touchdown there as well. Raheem Mostert making some history en route. Now the sole owner of the most touchdowns in a single season by any Miami Dolphin ever. All right, let's break this one down. As we were looking at a cheetah-less offense going up against a defense that we believe in, but anytime the Jets go to Miami, this sort of thing happens. I don't know if you can blame 30 points on the sun in their face on the opposing sideline. What do you blame this performance on when you're looking at New York and the reigning AFC Offensive Player of the week in Zach Wilson?
One team was just better than the other team. One team was well prepared, was more prepared than the other team, and we saw better execution. So the difference, what we witnessed from the Miami Dolphins offense, Joe, was that they prepared to participate without Tyreek Hill. Remember last Monday night, Tyreek got injured in the flow of the ball game. So this week, getting for the Jets, it's safe to say Tyreek Hill wasn't heavily involved in the game prep. He wasn't heavily involved in the reps during practice. So they had a great game plan for utilizing other guys in this offense, anticipating that Tyreek Hill might not be there. Went out before the ball game. They said he will be inactive. Guess what? The game plan was already in place. So that's why we saw Jalen Waddle more involved in the offense, kind of portraying that Tyreek Hill for their offense, and he lived up to the billing. Then, of course, the rushing attack in the red zone. You didn't get a lot of production in between the 20s from Raheem Mostert, but when they got into the red area, he showed up. And defensively, they played against a JV offense, Little League offense. I mean, what we saw today from the New York Jets offensively, it was pathetic. It was embarrassing. At one point in time, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, the Miami Dolphins at halftime, they had more sacks than the Jets had total yards.
That is correct.
How is that even possible?
5 sacks, 4 yards. That's how math works.
The Jets had 4 yards at halftime.
Quiet.
And I understand all the Zach Wilson haters want to say Zach Wilson is this, he's that. The offensive line. The offensive line was horrible. They were putrid. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't protect for whoever the quarterback was. It did not matter. They were running for their life. Zach Wilson needed to hydrate because he was getting beat up so bad. And then, of course, they said he's not coming back. I don't blame him. And then in comes Trevor Siemian, the same song. So the Jets offensively, it was hard to watch the Jets when they trotted on the football field on the offensive side because you knew nothing positive was going to happen.
For such a bad football team, frankly put, there's so much to talk about. I mean, whether it's the quarterback maybe coming back and being designated by Wednesday to return. Now, do you want to put him behind that offensive line, Aaron Rodgers? You can also talk about Zach Wilson not coming back off of dehydration. I mean, there's so much talk around this team right now that I think we could do an hour on it. I instead want to talk about this Miami team and what they were able to do. You know, we sit there and we talk about quarterbacks identifying the mic. 54's the mic, whatever. When defenses are playing against a guy like Tyreek Hill, you stand there and you identify, and what you do schematically is based off of where number 10 is standing. Did you see any of that today? Confusion on the back end for a team that prepared for Tyreek Hill all week and didn't have that indicator, had to get back to a base defense?
I wouldn't say it was more confusion. I just felt like the Dolphins had a game plan in place. It tells you what type of coach Mike McDaniels is. It tells you the creativity, the creation that he has within his ability to design plays and when to call them. Because when you talk about not having Tyreek Hill, you would think it would slow down the Miami Dolphins a tad bit because the fear factor that Tyreek has. No, it didn't. It didn't. What they did was they utilized Jalen Waddle more so than what we usually see with Tyreek Hill and Tua, and that timing was dead on point. And shouts out to Tua Tagovailoa, because we were hearing the critics say, Tyreek Hill went out that ball game last Monday night against Tennessee. Tua was not the Tua. And he had some issues. He had some moments that did not look Tua-ish. But in today's matchup, knowing that his #1 guy wasn't going to be there, I could still show you guys MVP-like performances against a stout defense. Because remember, the week before against the Houston Texans and C.J. Stroud, the Jets defense really neutralized the Houston Texans offense. And that was before CJ went out with that concussion. Today, Tua Tagovailoa, what his numbers were? 21 of 24, 234, 1 touchdown. He only had 3 incompletions.
Just getting it in play. Get that ball in space, and you know what's going to happen.
He had 3 incompletions.
Beautiful.
He almost had just as many incompletions as total yards.
Yeah.
For the Jets.
It was spectacular stuff from Tua. And I have a known Jet fan, producer Lucas, in my ear right now saying, talk about the Jets being eliminated from playoff contention.
Finally?
Exactly.
They were eliminated 4 weeks ago, but mathematically speaking, they're officially out.
Now official. Let's maybe phrase it this way. How disappointing is this season after all of the hype and 4 plays in, you lose your quarterback, now officially out of playoff contention? Like, how do you characterize this season for the New York Jets? They did stay afloat maybe longer than some had assumed.
It's very, very disappointing, and it provides so much pain to your heart because they lost Aaron Rodgers. That was the first punch in the gut. And then in comes Zach Wilson, who looked fairly good in the preseason. You kind of got your breath back a little bit. Because the same ball game where you lost Aaron Rodgers, you found a way to win and beat your rival in the Buffalo Bills. In comes the extra breath. And then you have these lapsed performances against the Dallas Cowboys, against some of the other teams. And then you play against the Philadelphia Eagles. You're like, oh, when you think you don't have a praying chance, guess what? You found a way to beat the Eagles and Jalen Hurts.
It makes no sense.
So here comes the breath again. The body's alive. We're breathing. And then you start seeing these other bad performances that we've witnessed over the last few weeks. So that's why it's so disappointing because, yes, you felt like Aaron Rodgers gives you a championship-like opportunity. You lose Aaron Rodgers, but we're still finding ways to win based on how well the defense was playing and the timely plays the offense was making. And right now, all of that is gone. There's no breath in the body. The body's just laying there waiting for someone to put it in the ground. And we finally can put the body in the ground today. The grave was already made and ready. We just couldn't put the body in because we were told there's a little bit of breath left. But as you mentioned, they're out of the playoffs. Get ready for next season.
It's got darker than I intended. A bit morose, but a beautiful metaphor here from our Bryant McFadden.
We gave the best example for all our viewers so they can understand what the Jets are.
Never out of breath is our Bryant McFadden. But the question now doesn't become why for Aaron Rodgers, but if.
No.